Karan, what do you have for us?
I'm gonna keep to the theme of bad news and just sort of bring to everyone's attention about today marking a year of Ukraine being invaded by Russia.
Today being
Hmm.
23rd of February.
As we record,
Yeah.
yes,
Mm.
as we record today is 23rd of February, and it is the 364th day of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think since this is big, I don't want to go into the reasons about why this. It's a very
Hmm.
long story, although I
Hmm.
can, but it's a very long story about how this war has come to being. But just we can touch this upon later.
Yeah.
But just want to quickly run through some numbers by everyone. Since Russia has invaded Ukraine, and if we have to take into consideration only the amount of manpower and equipment that has been intended for invasion,
Right.
Russia has lost 100% of their armored combat vehicles that were intended for invasion, 100% of tanks that were intended for invasion, 100% of artillery that was intended for invasion.
When you say intended for
What?
invasion,
As in, just
Matlab deployed.
say for
mm,
example, Russia has a total tank has 100 tanks, right?
yeah.
And they
Hmm.
are assigning say 20 of them to invade Ukraine, while
Yeah, yeah,
keeping
yeah.
the rest obviously
Deployment.
Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
So all of such equipment that was intended for Russia's for Ukraine's invasion initially,
Mm.
right? So of those numbers, just those numbers, they have lost. I'm just going to take this shorter, right?
Yeah.
So 100% of armored combat vehicles, tanks, artillery, helicopters, all of this,
Hmm.
100% of whatever they was supposed to deploy initially as per their plan is gone. Now it's only 90% of aircrafts and 24% of ships and boats that were intended for invasion are basically now gone.
Hmm.
If you had to now just extrapolate this in terms of what their total armed forces, what their total strength is, right?
Mm.
That still comes down to 64% of their armed forces. 64% of their
Wow.
armed forces is lost in Ukraine. Um, Almost 100% of their tanks are gone. They don't have tanks right now. They have maybe only about 20% of their aircrafts, like sorry, 80% of the aircrafts left, obviously
Hmm.
because this war is largely
Hmm.
based on fought on
Land.
land, and
Mm.
not much in terms of water except for the Moskva that was sunk
Hmm. Hmm.
earlier.
Hmm.
But anyway, so that is also not counting all the war crimes that they have been doing in Bucha and all of the different sort of places, where Mariupol still happening right now. And like honestly, I just, of course, Ukraine has tremendous support from literally everyone in the world on this on in this war against Russia. And it just, there are two things. So for one is Ukraine is bloody strong when it comes to their armies and their just their defense. And secondly, Russia is not really, I mean, I think Russia has lost all the soft power that they had in terms of global geopolitics and all of
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
They can't project that power anymore. They don't have I mean, they can't even bully anyone right now. They're like, what are you doing, boss? Like right now, I mean, literally as we speak, the Ukraine war is not really going very well for them. So then, I w- going forward, and plus the sanctions on Russia right now, like they pretty much can't replenish their armies or their uh, or the equipment because of all the sanctions that are going on. I just want to put this out there. How much longer do you guys think that the economy could sustain this?
Hard to say. Urvashi, do you have any estimates? Like,
Like
hard to
it's
No,
it,
no,
say.
it's wild because right now they're literally going into their reserves. If you know, if I mean, if you guys have been following this, they're literally going into their reserves right now. People like India, China, Iran still sort of trading with them, but we have
Mm.
our own reasons for all of that.
Hmm.
But it really, I feel so. Me personally, being the optimist that I am, I don't see this going for another year. Personally, uh, just
Basically, you're saying Russia is in a way worse position
of
than
course,
now
like
than they were a year ago.
yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Mm.
I don't think I don't think they even like expected this to be the case. And if you
Okay.
see the maps of whatever they've captured so far, it's only the already Russian speaking
Places.
provinces,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
provinces in the
Yeah.
on the east,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and that they have sort of taken over. Of course, Crimea, as it is.
Crimea तो पहले ही ले लिया था.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and yeah, but personally, I don't know if any diplomatic solution over here is
Hmm.
going to be the case. I think Russia is going to wear themselves out at some point. Putin's going to be like, "Oh yeah, we did it. We got these little bit
Ah.
of territory," and that's how I predict it to go. He and Putin
Do
is
we
going to
have
call.
any? Do we have any numbers for the human lives lost?
Yes,
Uh,
we do. That's 584,000. This on the Ru- in this is on just on Russia's side.
Russia's side.
Yeah, I believe we have a total casualty number of 584,000. This includes killed, wounded, and prisoners of war.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
5.8 lakh people.
that's 5.8 lakh people. It's not a pretty sight
But
at
this
all.
includes the wounded as well.
This includes the wounded as
Hmm.
well.
Wounded, dead prisoners of war.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, honestly, I think back. So I started following the war literally on day one or maybe day two.
Hmm.
It's every day. So there's this few sort of silver linings to this that
Hmm.
I keep thinking of is the daily addresses that Volodymyr Zelensky does. He still does
Hmm.
even as we speak right now. The Ghost of Kiev. If any of you remember, the Ghost of Kiev was this lone fighter pilot,
Yeah.
turned out to be fiction,
Hmm.
but was this lone fighter pilot flying over the skies of Kiev, trying to shoot down other aircrafts. Apparently, he got 5 kills. So the name Ghost of Kiev happened because he got. It was rumored that he got 5 kills in one sortie, which is basic, which is kind of like a record. There has never been a time when one aircraft has gotten 5 kills
Hmm.
in the same sort of flight. And also there's this one iconic clip of the president standing in the middle of
Yeah.
Kiev on
Yeah.
the street with his internal
Bodies.
minister, defense minister, all of these guys
Yeah.
looking absolutely fucking dapper, by the way. They were
Yeah.
and just saying that we are here. We don't need your protection. Basically talking to the Western powers who are asking him
Hmm.
to evacuate from
Yeah.
Ukraine, saying, "We are all here. My guys are here. My ministers are here. We don't need your sort of evacuation plan. We only need weapons."
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so, and of course, what was the warship that fired on that island? I believe it was called Snake Island, and there were these, I think, 15 or 20 soldiers on that island. They basically told the ship they were talking to the ship on radio, and
Hmm.
it's again a very popular story that the ship was saying that we are going to fire upon you if you guys don't surrender, and they're like, "We are not surrendering. You can go, you know where," basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the story goes that they fired and they got killed, but eventually it was revealed that those guys, most of them survived,
Hmm.
and I
Right.
believe they are still prisoners of war in Ukraine.
Hmm.
What's the significance of Biden visiting Ukraine a couple of days ago?
It's a huge middle finger to Putin.
Okay.
I mean, can you imagine the leader of the free world,
Right.
who is essentially your main geopolitical rival,
Hmm.
visiting the same streets that you are planning to raise to the ground?
Hmm.
That that does send a message that doesn't need to be even
Hmm.
like whatever, like articulated
Right.
in that matter. If that
So
matters.
does that mean now this is the ultimate David versus Goliath story of our time? That
Who's David? At this
uh,
point, who's David? I'm saying Russia is David right now because Ukraine has all the
Used to be
support.
Goliath, now became David. I mean, like
Yeah, I mean that's
that's
the
the.
biggest like
But I actually wanted to ask Urvashi also this question about the soft power which you mentioned, right, Karan? So, like, Urvashi, can you give us an idea of how much damage Russia has just generally caused, uh, like soft power wise?
Uh, right now, I was, if you don't mind, I rather than soft power, which I think we can like
Hmm.
talk about it another time, since we are discussing Russia Ukraine. I think it's
Yeah.
more important to talk about the nuclear dimension of this
Yes,
conflict.
please. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I was just looking at the doomsday clock, which is sort of tells you how close the world is from, not from extinction, but from complete destruction. And this is like compiled by scientists. And January 23rd, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists said it's 90 seconds to midnight,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
This is because, like, if you even saw what happened in Ukraine just like a few months ago, where I think Russia took control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, uh,
Hmm.
which is an extremely it's, disturbing to say the least for a nuclear power plant to be the site of conflict.
Hmm.
And Russia has also threatened to use nuclear weapons against Ukraine. Now, when we have, yeah, and I think a few months ago, the uh, International Atomic Energy Agency chief said this madness has to stop now.
Hmm.
So, and there's no telling about how this war might, you know, continue. Like even if it
Yeah.
continues for a year or two, like, and like you've already said, like Russia's like lost so much, and it's still sort of there. Its boots are still firmly on the ground. So what does it really seek? Um, and with as increasingly conflicts have a nuclear dimension to it, I think that's where one needs to exercise like a lot of uh, you know restraint in even how we talk about the war or we write about it,
Hmm.
um, because we know that there is no path of return once that happens. We saw that
Yeah.
in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We saw it in like accidents of civil and nuclear energy in Chernobyl and
Yeah.
in Fukushima. And so it's like when I read about the Russian takeover of Zaporizhia, I was like, okay, this conflict
Hmm.
has entered a new dimension, and that's why even countries like have uh, we have problems with Pakistan, we have problems with China, and everyone is armed to the teeth. So in
Hmm.
every
Hmm.
possible way,
Yeah.
and nuclear weapons, and these give it a completely new dimension to the conflict. And even as we speak, there are even greater sort of threats to think about, like cyber attacks. Right? It's no
Yeah.
longer
Hmm.
just about boots on the ground or in physically invading someone's territory or drone based. There's the whole cyber attack. The
Hmm.
evolving nature of conflict becomes more sophisticated, more
Yeah.
precise. That's what worries me, frankly. Yeah.
That is something that I was going to mention towards the end of this episode. Like now that the physical war with bullets and all is kind of, I wouldn't say it's waning down, but it's still at some level much lower than what it in terms of intensity that what it was say last year in Feb. But I think
Mm,
now we're going to see a lot more in terms of virtual warfare.
mm,
It's not surprising. I mean, Russia is much advanced in that sense as well. In terms of nuclear, sort of complete nuclear catastrophe, I'm still not sure. I'm not disagreeing with you in any way, but I mean, to
No,
me,
you
it
can
just looks
disagree. It's
like
okay.
no,
I
I don't. No, I don't. I completely do agree with you. But I'm just like, in my mind, I'm thinking that if anything the war has taught us, right, or this war has exposed rather, is Russia's complete ineptitude in terms of their maintenance of their weapons, even the kind of weapons that they have. There are so many reports coming in that the soldiers who are being deployed right now are still being given bullets from the 70s, which is fine. I mean, the weapons ordnance really stays for that long, but they're getting helmets from World War II, guys. They're still
Hmm.
getting helmets from World War II. They're getting equipment from the Cold War. You don't know. The jury's still out on whether these might work or not.
Mm,
And the
Hmm.
same, you can extrapolate that same theory to even their nuclear weapons.
mm,
Nuclear weapons do need a lot of maintenance, at least on a, I mean, if not on a daily basis, at least on a weekly basis. They do need a lot of maintenance. Now,
Hmm.
they know that their equipment is not really kind of dependable, but they also know that the other guy in front of them does have nuclear weapons, and they know that they will be maintained on a day-to-day basis because the other guy is basically the United States,
right.
and we know how reliable their sort of, all their weapons and all are. So I don't know if we will get to that nuclear sort of complete nuclear catastrophe.
But
Not
there are
yet,
already
at least.
signs. So just to add to that, so there is this news item which I wanted to point out about that Russia suspends only remaining major nuclear treaty with US. So
Yeah,
since the Cold War times, there was this mutual agreement that we won't do any nuclear tests.
yeah,
So Russia has suspended that policy right now. They are
yeah.
saying that we don't know if we will completely pull out, but they have suspended, which is a signaling exercise essentially.
Correct.
But I mean, you never know where
Towards
it
the
goes
end
from
of that
here.
same speech, he also said that we are doing this, but as long as the other side also doesn't do it, we are okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
honestly, yeah, man. And just to add to that, the day Biden landed in Kiev,
Hmm.
Russia failed an ICBM missile launch.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's not enough that his sworn geopolitical enemy was in the enemy territory, but also that they had this whole thing planned where they're going to show their strength and all that, but that failed. So
hmm.
that just gives me enough confidence that maybe we have that some hope left in terms of
On that
you know
note, I'd like to add that most of India's nuclear reactors are built with Russian technology.
Hmm.
yeah,
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And also our weapons come from there. So like we have a
yeah,
big
Well,
amount
I
of
would say
defense weapons
most.
coming from.
I would say at this point that's going down though. We are still like
yeah.
kind of.
Hmm.
So like I said, we have the S300s, the S400s, and that was a huge, point of contention with the US because their doctrine is simple. If you buy weapons from Russia, we are going to start giving you less and less aid. But
Hmm.
India, I feel like the India is the only country in the world that has such a weird relationship with Russia because with US because they need us economically with all of their industry and all that depending on us. So which is why we have a great sort of diplomatic ties with the US. At the same time, we do buy their sort of F-16s and their sort of
Hmm.
jets as well. We do buy their weapons as well. We buy weapons from Israel a lot more now. That's going up, and I feel our dependency on Russian equipment is going to go down as time moves on.